Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and today we are going to have a very special topic. The topic that we're going to be discussing is the topic of trauma, and this is a part of life that is going to affect every one of us at some point in time. And so today I have in studio Judy Nemeth. And Judy is a yoga teacher and practitioner. She also does myofascial release. And so today we are going to discuss trauma from all aspects. And I'm probably going to be filling in on the psychotherapist perspective. And Judy will be talking about the body aspect and how it affects you guys. And at the end of this broadcast, we have a very special test that you can take called the Beck's Anxiety Inventory, which will tell you where you are on the anxiety scale and whether past traumas are actually affecting you. It'll give you a points score, which you can, well, see where you stand. And then you could book an appointment with Judy or myself, as the case may be. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring Judy on stage. Hey, Judy, how are you?
Hi, David. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Okay, Judy, talk to us about your background. I did give a little bit of an intro to you, but I would rather you introduce yourself. Let's hear it.
So my name is Judy Nemeth,
Mhm,
and I am a 500-hour yoga teacher trainer and a myofascial release stretch therapist
mhm,
by John F. Barnes approach. And I started my yoga career definitely dealing with a lot of trauma that I had been through in my
mhm,
early 20s.
mhm,
I had dealt with death, and then I also dealt with prison, and
mhm.
then I also dealt with a lot of projecting afterwards for the years to follow after all of that. And my yoga career definitely got into the talk therapy
Mhm.
part of it, but there was still a missing component. And that had everything, even though I was moving stuff around in my body, there was still PTSD and other trauma parts stuck in my body that I couldn't figure out why they were still affecting me so bad.
Mhm.
And then I got into myofascial stretch release therapy and I figured it out.
Yes, you see, this is the problem that a lot of people have. The therapy game is not as cut and dried as people would like to believe. People think, well, I've experienced a traumatic event. I'm just going to go to a shrink. They're going to go to somebody who with a designation of a psychotherapist, and they're going to work stuff out, and everything is going to be okay. The truth of the matter is that I got into different other aspects of therapy specifically because I discovered that you can fix the mind of an individual. It doesn't necessarily mean that you fix the body. All right. And I say this in the best way because a lot of people think that traumatic events only reside in the mind, but actually they translate down to the body. I want you to just educate these people on how that works.
So there's this term that they've recently came out with, and it's neuropeptides.
Hmm.
And what they're learning is that the cell, it actually has the potential to change and create something new on a daily basis. And that ability right there can get stimulated by MFR therapy or other types of massage. And a lot of what it has to do is it's creating more space and it's creating more options for your body. Because
Hmm.
that's kind of what happens is when you go through the trauma, the fascia system goes into stability mode
Hmm.
or holding support mode, and
Yes.
then it just holds it and stays there and never goes back to its natural form. So again, that's where the mind can get through stuff, but then the body is still holding all of that pain, all of that pressure. And
Hmm.
then I think it gets even more confusing because you're like, why is my body still freaking out? when I know I'm okay upstairs, but your body is
Yeah.
still in. And when the body's freaking out, even if you know what you're talking about, I mean, body language is everything. People pick up on so much stuff. It's hard to talk to people. It's hard to communicate. And all these things can just start getting really confusing and frustrating and can spiral you into other places, other issues. You can develop more issues. But the myofascial release, what's really amazing about it is that there are no words, right? It allows the body to create the expression that it was in that trauma and then to completely release it. And that makes a big difference.
Honestly, I think a lot of people know this concept intuitively, but they miss the connected parts. So today we're going to try to connect the dots for you. So I'm going to give you a scenario. And I'm going to try to depersonalize the scenario. Let's say that you have experienced trauma from a loved one in the form of abuse, as an example. Okay, it may be sexual abuse, it may be physical abuse, it may be verbal abuse. Because in the mind, it's not much different. From a psychotherapy point of view, in the mind, it is not much different. In the body, however, it absolutely is. I'll explain what I mean by that. If I say to you, let's say I'm your dad, call me daddy. Okay, let's say that I'm your dad, and I say to you, you are worthless. In the mind, the subconscious does not differentiate between a statement of fact and a statement of fiction. Okay, it is up to you to decide whether you're accepting that. But however, your emotions will be affected as a result of that. I might as well have just hit you with a baseball bat. The body is going to respond exactly the same way at a cellular level. It absolutely will. Okay? So if you think this is just going to hurt your feelings, no, it's going to hurt you as well. This is a misnomer that people make. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will do me no harm. Words can absolutely traumatize you. Okay? If it is, I am your stepfather and I am sexually molesting you, your body is going to react differently. Okay? Not only will it react differently, but it will embed the trauma. And if you think a couple of years of psychotherapy is going to undo that embed, you would be wrong. Because you'll think you're fine. You'll think you're great until you get into the next relationship. And everybody who is listening to this broadcast who've had these experiences knows exactly what I'm talking about. If it is that I am your dad once again and I continually beat you, right, for no reason, probably I'm an alcoholic, who knows, right? And I continually beat you. Yeah, kind of funny that the guy who doesn't drink is, yeah, I know, right? Right? And I continually beat you. What happens to you over a period of time? Your body will go into a shell protective state. It will choose to harden to lessen the impact of what I'm doing to you. Your emotions will follow suit. You will become numb as a result of it. And honestly, guys, after the experience, the initial sensitizing event, we call it in psychotherapy, is over, and you leave the situation, you get some counseling and so on, and you think you're okay, what's inside the body is going to be there. Now, as a practitioner of Hatha Yoga and pranayama and so on, Judy, you will remember what you feel when it is that you're actually going through your practice and being inside that body and feeling what is happening to you.
Well, it definitely, so I feel like that goes back to the fight, flight, or freeze, where freeze is the new phenomenon they're putting in because more people are freezing than fight or fly. And so when you freeze, all that tension, everything, it's still going on in the body, right? Like that
Hmm.
fight, flight, whether you were to like run all the way down the street, that same amount of potential energy is flying through your body and then just freezes.
Yes.
And right, and gets you very stuck then in that trauma. And also I think it's creates that thought that that trauma is everything. So it's like instead of looking at it as a part of your entire life, it becomes your whole life.
Mhm.
And then, and that to me is also the body, is it takes over your body in that same way, is that's it. And again, it's like it takes off all the options. I think then that's where it starts messing with your emotions, where
Yes.
you start going to anger,
Hmm.
sadness. They when they were teaching us about that, they would compare it to like an animal, like a mouse, that
Yes.
was right, that would freeze. But then you see the mouse, when the predator finally leaves, the mouse will shake for like 15, 20 minutes because it is getting rid of all of that trauma energy that was bouncing around in them. And they do that naturally. That's instinctive. That's the body's intuitive intelligence getting it
Correct.
to release. And we have trouble with that now. Our intuition to heal ourselves gets cut off, and the body wants to
Hmm.
heal.
Yes, because nervous tensions are like guitar strings, all right? And they need they need the release. That's the music that's coming off of you. And here's the thing about it. I think a lot of people, we used to have an intuitive way of healing ourselves. To a certain extent, children in the modern age have lost a lot of that. Because I'm sure you remember falling out of a tree.
I climbed a lot of trees. I love climbing trees.
I'm sure you remember falling out of a tree or falling off your bicycle and so on. There was a point where you fell off that bike, you got the impact, and then you stopped for a while and did an assessment. If I had to remind people of what they were like when they were children, they can't get into it. So let's follow me down this path. You fell out of a tree, you fell off your bike, you fell down. There was a pause. There was a sort of a small pause that happened, right? Where like, am I okay? I'm okay. All right. And he bounced back up and you run along. You run. All insects in the animal kingdom, all domestic pets have that same reaction. At the end of the day, we are human animals. That's what we are. And I think a lot of us have lost a lot of the ingrained natural responses for healing and for awareness that we used to have. But we're going to get to that because we're talking about myofascial release therapy as well, MFR. And so, what I want you to tell us is give us an overview of what that's like. What does that look like?
So there are different MFR programs.
Mm-hmm.
There's different popular ones around the country. The technique that I use is taught by John F. Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
He's an amazing teacher. If you ever want to look him up, he's about 86, so he's getting up there. But his technique is soft, sustained pressure
Mm-hmm.
for a specific amount of time. And the reason that's different than necessarily like the manipulating is
Mm-hmm.
that the nervous system, it won't budge if it feels like it's getting attacked again. It's going to protect itself. It's going to continue to protect itself. So the softer approach, it's almost like you're tricking the body.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming in at a slower pace. And then after about the 2 to 3 minute mark, this thing happens where we create electromagnetic energy, and it goes through the body, and it
Mm-hmm.
helps start to release all of those tensions. And you will actually see people,
Mm-hmm.
we call it unwinding, And it's
Yes.
where the body starts to move on its own. And it's very funny. My clients, when they experience this for the first time, their eyeballs will pop open because they're like, I didn't do that.
Hmm.
So, or like their legs will start twitching too. Some people unwind very soft and some people unwind pretty drastically. I was very drastic. Like I was doing somersaults off the table,
Yeah, this
going
is what we
into
call ab
handstands.
reactions in psychotherapy. The ab
Yeah.
reaction. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the training I went to, it was an entire seminar on unwinding. So we
Hmm.
did the entire training was that. And it was to see people were recreating like automobile accidents, like whatever still frames they would hit in an accident, they would
Yes.
start going through. Or if somebody had been strangled, we had someone like that, their hands flew up to their neck and they
Hmm.
started yelling. There's usually yelling, people are releasing. And again,
Hmm.
it's happening without them really realizing. You
Hmm.
do have to drop your nervous system though, because it's a hard thing if you're being very protective and you're not really trustworthy of what's happening to you in that moment. The body's going to have a hard time releasing and going into that. But when it does happen, I mean, it's amazing. It's and you would even think that the person would need like a therapy session after the session because of everything they're going through, but they feel so much better. They feel so much better. And they can actually also start to remember
Yes.
memories.
And then herein lies the danger because that is an uncovering process, a discovery process of the self as well. I remember teaching hatha yoga classes years ago, and the yoga system that I came from, we held the stretches and we had to be inside the body, really inside the body. And there were points in time when the body releases, and then everybody is like, oh, it's like an moment, right? It's that moment that you get. And it brought people to tears, a lot of them. Okay. Because they had stuff on board, and you know what I'm talking about because you've been in this long enough, right? So it brought people to tears, really. And so when I began to learn massage therapy myself, I just learned basic massage therapy, and I tried to increase the awareness of the body. One of the things that we learned to identify with regard to bodies that were stiff and so on. We learned we had what we call the usual suspects, the tight hamstrings, right? The brain stem tight, and these usual suspects that we would work on and so on. And these spots in the body, Judy, you want to talk about them because a lot of people don't understand what these tight spots mean for them.
Fascia restrictions.
Yes.
So, fascia restrictions, again, it's new science where they found out that there's a fourth phase of water, and that's how snowflakes are created.
Hmm.
Is it's freezes. And so what happens is whenever you have a restriction that happens,
Hmm.
which can happen from an injury, it can happen from an emotional issue, anything where the fascia feels like it needs to go into protection mode and it needs to support you in a certain way, and then it stays where it's at and then
Hmm.
starts to create problems around the surrounding areas. And the big muscles like to take on all of it. So then the hamstrings take it all on, the quads take it all on. So then you start getting knots all through your quads and your hamstrings because it's not allowing anything else to flow through those areas. So what happens is it's almost like most people have seen Jurassic Park. So they
Yes.
have the amber that's solidified around the mosquito.
Yes.
That is what a fascia restriction, it is that tough, like
Mm.
solidified amber. And so it creates like this little capsule over the area. So you can, for example, you can drink as much water as you want to, but water
Mhm.
isn't going to get through there. So when people feel like they're constantly dehydrated and they're drinking water all the time, it's probably a fascia problem. And then
Mhm.
other circulation issues start to happen as well. And then when you break a knot up, if you notice the sound that it makes, it's like a crunchy,
Yep.
right? Sort of like you're breaking up a piece of ice, or something of that factor. And that's why I also recommend people to get some sort of deep tissue or get a really nice massage gun, because that is necessary as well, because those big muscles and those big knots, you don't want to wear an MFR therapist out with with them having to work on that.
Agreed.
Because then also once you break up those big knots, the surrounding fascia just releases even more, because if you didn't know, fascia is completely surrounding your skeletal system,
Mhm.
connects everything, goes through the muscles. Each cell, they're actually saying now that each cell has its own fascia structure that replicas the full one in the body. And yeah, which is
And
wild.
so, for those of you who are watching this broadcast, what does a fascia restriction feel like and what are its effects? I'm going to start. I'm going to let Judy come in on this one as well. Obviously, tightness. Your flexibility will be compromised. Okay. Like, last month I could like pick up a coin off the ground, but now I have to get out on all fours to get that coin off the ground. Listen, I once knew a lady who had been through a lot of trauma and she had an extremely bad diet. I'm talking about she fed every day. She fed is a fast food chain from where I come from, right? Similar to McDonald's, right? She would eat, but she wouldn't necessarily gain weight, right? And she would poison the body quite a bit. After about 20 years of doing this, she couldn't reach her knees. Some people can't touch their toes. She couldn't touch her knees. Okay. So obviously the lack of flexibility, but in a general feeling of malaise. A lot of people don't know what malaise is. It's a kind of miserable feeling that overcomes you, that you're not quite sure what's happening or what's wrong, but it's just a general feeling of malaise. It's because your subconscious has picked up the fact that your body is majorly impaired
Mhm.
and it is feeding it back to you. It's like a nervous system feedback that happens where you're just not going anywhere. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to sit down and stuff like that. That is what malaise is. I'm sure some of y'all have felt that. Judy, jump in here.
That's where I was at before I found MFR,
Yes.
because I'm actually a great example for how bad a fascia restriction can mess you up, because
Mhm.
luckily I did a session with Andrew and he informed me that my fascia on my right side was all messed up and going all in the wrong direction. And it was from a hip injury I had when I was like 8 years old that I don't even remember. And it was like from dancing where my hip
Mhm.
popped up out of place. So from that hip popping out of place over time, it pushed everything on my right side up.
Mhm.
So I basically lived that part of my life like in a schism, where even like with my brain, like being able to, which I am left-handed and am constantly switching things and putting things backwards and everything.
I'm left-handed as well. I'm
Right.
left-handed as well.
So you already have a little bit, but I always felt that like there was this disconnection that I was dealing with that was
Mhm.
not right. And That's exactly what he told me when we were going over it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I had just gotten done with my 300. And I was to the point where I didn't think I could teach anymore because my
Hmm.
shoulder was locked up. I got TMJ up in my jaw. It was
Hmm.
my neck. It was like a whole, I mean, I couldn't do plank. I couldn't do downward dog, like nothing. So stretches weren't helping me at
Hmm.
all. And so really, again, most intense, if you're having something like that where stuff is flaring up all over the place, it's usually a hip. It started with a hip that went out of place. And then from when the hip goes out of place, the
Hmm.
fascia starts going up the spine. And however the hip went out, it starts to contort up the spine. It wraps around the organs. It comes up. Mine, it like wrapped up around my neck, I down through the arms, and it goes through the extremities and starts messing up the extremities. And so I was like, I had to stop sleeping with a pillow. I was having a really hard time sleeping, all these things. The second I started to get this hip down, everything started to go back. And all these little things that I was dealing with just kind of like started to dissipate. But it also took a lot of time because that was a long time that I had been going on that. And I was very athletic growing up, and I had been through a 200-hour teacher trainer. Like I had done so many things with this, and it was okay at that time. And then afterwards is when
Yes.
it flared up. And so I was very frustrated because, again, I had been putting in a lot of work, a lot of work.
Yes,
And
and getting frustrated. You know, a lot of people don't understand that a lot of people tend to lump all of these aches and pains into the category, well, I'm getting older, it's just natural that I have aches and pains. That's not how that works. Unless you have osteoporosis, there's no reason why you should be living hobbling in the morning to get to the bathroom, hobbling to get to the kitchen. Guys, I'm going to say a few things, and I want y'all to take this in the best way possible. The process of aging does not necessarily mean that you will have aches and pains. Yes, your ability to heal it may be slowed down a little bit, not by much. Okay. And so, if you're feeling the way Judy has described, get yourself into somebody's office. Oh, don't wait until you give somebody a lot of work to do. As soon as you feel it, get yourself into somebody's office. The other point that you just made, I want to pick up on. A lot of people, I used to teach Pilates as well. Yeah, I was very into everything back then, right? And a lot of people get into Pilates classes and yoga classes and they're wondering why the pain isn't going away. I stretch, I'm really stretching, which is another indicator, right? Because if you're going to all those classes and nothing is happening and you're still in aches and pains, then something else is going on and you need to deal with it. So there's that. I started weight training at a very early age. So you know things are going to go wrong, right? There is no weight training without injury. None. Okay? There's no such thing. Weight training by itself is injury. We know this now. Because the only way your muscles develop is because you put micro tears inside of them. Okay? So for those of you, I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. That's exactly how that happens. So if you are into weight training and let's say you're not stretching and you're not taking care of yourself in other ways, you're going to need a MFR specialist. However, depending on the amount of scar tissue you have put on yourself, you might end somebody's career or seriously shorten it. So keep ahead of the game. Get yourself a massage gun if you don't trust people to touch your body or whatever the case may be, and pound the crap out of it Okay. One of the major problems that Judy has described is misalignment. Okay. So before we continue, I want to give a few exercises in alignment. Okay. Get yourself a tape measure, good old fashioned, the stuff that the seamstress uses to, think when you get. Do they still do that, or do people just go to Walmart? Do people actually get stuff made?
I measured myself the other week for something I had to buy online.
Okay, get that tape measure. Measure the distance between your belly button and your left nipple and the distance between your belly button and your right nipple. That's the first measurement you're going to take.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
All right? That's the first measurement you're going to take. The second measurement you're going to take is you're going to start with your feet equal distance apart. You're going to measure the difference between your belly button and your left toe, belly button and the right toe. Okay? Then we're going to do the planes of motion. You're going to get yourself a broomstick. This is going to be fun. Then you're going to have somebody take a picture of you standing like a mugshot, straight up to the side, right? And the broomstick will tell you whether you're tilted forward or tilted backwards, okay? It'll tell you whether your hips are tilted backwards and whether it's tilted forward. These are indicators that, well, you're misaligned, but the cause of the misalignment is what we're dealing with. Because people don't just wake up one day and say, oh, you know what, today I'm going to be misaligned. No, that's not how it works, okay? Something usually leads up to that. Sometimes it's tightening muscles, sometimes it's injury, and so on. And so I want to ask Judy, I'm bringing you back in here. How is it that people become misaligned, and how does that affect them in terms of the way the fascia operates?
So that definitely plays into gravity, right? So even I can't remember the exact amount of force that comes down, like the tensile force that comes down on the restriction from the gravity, but it's an insane amount. Like it's incomprehensible, of how much strain that the body is going through just walking out of alignment. And if you continue, again, people get frustrated because they want a quick fix. And it's like, well, how many steps have you taken in so many years? Like, it just doesn't get fixed that quickly. And whatever you've hurt right here, all up here is messed up, and all down here is messed up as well. But the fun thing about fascia is it's like a network. So you can plug in at any part of the body and it be effective. Because again, you're working with the concept of the whole to assess the parts versus the part to assess the whole, which is flipping the script.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a different concept.
Yeah, so let's get into the topic, because now that we've given the background, let me explain the concept of trauma to you. Trauma usually denotes or connotes an unpleasant experience that has been embodied. Okay? For our purposes, this is the definition that we're working with. An unpleasant, because trauma hardly ever is pleasant. I'm not quite sure if there's any exceptions to that rule, but trauma, an unpleasant experience which has been embodied for our purposes. Okay. And when I say embodied, it means that it has typed itself onto your body and your mind. So as an example, and I'm going to show you how this actually translates into your body. If you keep putting me down or frightening me, what is going to happen is that when I see you, I am going to do this. Okay? When I do that, I will move myself out of alignment. I will develop something called a kyphotic curve in my spine. because my sense of self-worth, you always know when somebody has a poor sense of self-worth, a lot of them are walking with their heads down. For the women who have been made to feel shame because of who they are, they will close up and do this. So the shoulders are coming in and the head is coming down, and they're trying to close up. They're trying to literally disappear into themselves. And people do that to them. It's annoying. Okay? I can't tell you the amount of women that have been through classes that I have taught. It doesn't, not even yoga classes, Pilates classes, where I've had to like get the shoulders. I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to, like open, 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 open. All right. So that actually happens. And it's not just age or hereditary issues, because you can fight genetics. You can absolutely fight genetics. Trust me when I tell you that. Okay? You can fight that good fight. So if your grandmother and your mother is like this, and you say, oh, that they're like this is how I'm going to be. No, no, no. Okay? All right. You can actually choose to do something different. And by the way, you don't know why they're like that. Generally, because they may have experienced generational trauma of some kind, where they were treated badly and they continued down the line. And so you have to choose and pick whether or not you're developing coping skills for trauma. So, from the psychotherapy point of view, I will say to the following: make an inventory of the traumas that were experienced by your parents, the traumas that you've seen growing up, and then choose. Oh, I'm not going to be like that. You can choose. A lot of people think that they don't have a choice, but choice is a wonderful thing, so you can choose. From an MFR perspective, I'm going to pass this on to Judy. In terms of embodied trauma, like from seeing your mother be put down and having yourself put down, if you're like a woman, or if you're being put down as a man or whatever else, from a very early age, let's say in the form of developmental trauma of some kind. What are the situations and how would you deal with that as a therapist?
Well, I, with those situations,
Mm-hmm.
I like to do cranial therapy with
Mm-hmm.
them. So you have more fascia in your cranium than anywhere else in the body. And I think when you're dealing with something like that, the brain is so wrapped up in that narrow thought process that you don't have space, you don't have options, you literally don't have space in around your brain. And so when I do cranial on people, it seems to affect the body, the whole body,
Mm-hmm.
in a different way, where they're releasing, you can see like the tension from their face start to relax, where I think it's you're holding stuff in places in the body
Mm-hmm.
that you think that that's just normal. You think that that's how you're supposed to look. Again, like genetics say that
Mm-hmm.
is, you're like looking, you're like, oh, my mom has, shoulders up like this and like this. And so that's just how I'm built. If you were to look at a picture of me from 3 years ago, my shoulders look completely different. My neck looks completely different. My face shape looks different. You will start to release inflammation and fluid retention, which I think emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, it's hard when somebody is emotionally entangled with it. It's harder to release.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that's why when you start working with the head and also the face and the forehead,
Mm-hmm.
one of the most powerful movements that was done on me was one head on the top of the forehead and one hand on the back
Mm-hmm.
and pushing together. And I
Yes.
felt an emotion. I started bawling. I was bawling, and I have no idea why. It's but I think again, people don't understand that you have fascia in the sutras between your cranial bones. Fascia is actually what holds your cranial bones in place. And when you're going through that emotional stress and pressure, your cranial bones start to come together and the fascia starts to harden. And so, again, like the ability to try and think of new options or to think that there's even something else, like it's really hard to get there on your own.
I am so happy to be talking to an MFR specialist because a lot of people don't realize how what she's talking about actually ties into a lot of other therapies that they are going into or going through. And I think everyone listening to this broadcast should actually speak to an MFR specialist. Um, and I won't even have a statement to make on mental health because in this world, if you're not talking to a counselor or something, it's only a matter of time. Only a matter of time. Okay. All right. And so the best thing to do is learn the coping skills she's talking about. Because if you went to do Indian head massage, what do you think is happening? Okay. Now, this tightness of the scalp is actually something that they teach you in massage therapy. They never tell you the underlying. It's just a stroke in massage, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that they like to call it? Shampooing. Okay. You know, some women go to the hairdresser just to get that shampoo effect to loosen up that
Yep.
skull, right?
It feels good. There's a
It
reason
does.
it
It
feels
does.
good. There's
Right.
a reason.
Yeah, because and just from a spiritual perspective, I'm going to throw that in here. What she's talking about here, if you are wound up literally and figuratively wound up to that degree, but you still consider yourself, well, I am spiritually enabled. No, no, no,
Mm.
no, no, no. I've never seen anyone, okay, become spiritually enlightened with a tight, tuned up body to the point of whatever. There's freedom to be had, and there's no reason why you should be going through life feeling that sort of tightness in the head and the brain stem, which let me tell you, that's like 90% of the people working in offices right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You want to talk about that because the brainstem is very important. Because everybody listening to this broadcast, I'm sure, just do a check in with yourself. And the parts we're talking about trauma and so on. And trauma doesn't have to be some big catastrophic event like, I don't know, a nuclear disaster or something. I saw a nuclear bomb go off, I'm traumatized. No, trauma could be something very simple as you walking into your boss's office, right? And him telling you, you didn't do this right. It depends on who you are. Okay? Somebody tripping and the wrong person seeing you trip and fall could be traumatic to you. So there's scales of trauma, but what it does, the effect on your body is the same. Okay? And so I tend to not put a scale or window on trauma. Different people perceive trauma differently. But let's talk about the brainstem. For those of you who are listening to this, do a check in. How does your brainstem feel? Is your skull tight? Your brain is okay? I'm talking about all this area right here. Just poke it. How does that feel? It feels okay? Okay, Judy, jump in here.
Right. So, is it the head, the heaviest part of the body? Is that correct? Or it's close? It's
Close.
it's a heavy thing, right? So that like slight forward, it takes you off the vertical axis alignment. And then once you're off of that, then everything else starts to go. And also, usually people have one shoulder up as well. So not
Mhm.
only is the head like this, but what you're looking at so intensely is making you stressed because I'm sure you're answering thousands of emails and you don't understand why this person's saying this or why this is doing this. So
Judy,
before you know it,
let's not forget
this.
You know the
Yep. Uh-huh.
yes, it's
Speaker.
hilarious to me.
Put it on the speaker. I drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, there's also, you've got your three main nerves that drop down the side of your neck, and they go under the collarbone and up under the armpit and then wrap around the arm, right?
The brachial plexus,
neck,
absolutely.
Right? So then the neck comes forward, all those nerves are going, they're pissed off immediately. They're not Yeah, they tell me. I work on people. It tells me. It's mad.
For people who are listening to this, straighten up, pull back, let the light shine into the heart. Like, do the Care Bears. What is that Care Bear thing? The projection, right? Try that. Right? Inhale. Let the air go into your chest. What?
Shoot the rainbow out of the heart. Yeah. That's what they
do. The Care Bear stare thing, right? Right. For the yoga practitioners in here, there's a reason why basic movements like the Cobra have been invented. And it's not a polite suggestion. Do it. Okay? Whether you like it, you don't like it. There's some people that try to avoid postures. You know that, right? Oh, but yeah. For those of you who are in here, just open up every once in a while, because the whole of society, the whole of the modern world is closing you down bit by bit. And you would like to show people a fullness of your heart. A lot of people say, well, I just want to be in my heart center. Well, let me see it then. Okay? All right, so I want to say that little point. We're going down the rest of the body in terms of trauma. So what causes that head tilt issue when you're feeling underappreciated from a psychotherapy point of view, when you're feeling a sense of a loss of self-worth, loss of self-esteem will do that to you when you're trying to hide yourself, when you're trying to disappear into the void, right? This is what causes all of that stuff to happen, right? When you're trying not to be seen, when you try to blend into the background. And so for those of you who are experiencing that, that is pretty much the cause of that. You're hanging your head, and it's never a good thing. Your nerves, as Judy said, is going to be pissed off. The MFR specialist is going to be like trying to open you up and get that fascia to relax and get the nervous system to relax. And you're going to cause yourself breathing problems, anatomically speaking, because you're cutting off at least 15% of your oxygen supply when you do that.
And then you'll probably get some carpal tunnel along with it.
Yes, pinched nerve, everything else. And we're talking about also the trapeze is going to be under stress, this muscle, this triangular shaped muscle that comes down from your neck as well. Well, let us go down the rest of the body, because, this is just too much fun. Let's go through the rest of the body. The center and middle back, so the erector, the central and middle back down to the lower back. A lot of people used to think that the spine is straight. Did you know that? Like, people think that the spine is... No, it actually does this kind of thing. Okay.
I feel like we'd look really weird. We'd look very strange with straight spines.
Well, to be quite honest, I've seen some people who look, they make me wonder, is your spine really straight? Because they're not bending anywhere. Okay. So your spine does this curvy thing. So the top bones are called cervical, the middle bones thoracic, the lower bones lumbar, or yes, we have the sacral. Tell us how in MFR, people who are traumatized, what the kind of traumas that cause these pains down the back or tightness of the back. 9 times out of 10, it's because people feel a lack of support. They have extremely bad posture, and they have very, very bad practices. So if you don't care too much and you're continuously tired, you're going to drop down in some sofa somewhere Which brings me to my next issue. What role does furniture, furniture, this I don't want to, because that's a hot topic for me, okay? Right? And I say this because what role does furniture play in messing people up? Okay, because it's all tied up. So you're tired at the end of the day because your job is hard. You're going to throw yourself into a couch. You're going to watch TV. Literally, and I don't know. You see, some people will not come to they'll come to your yoga class and can't do a spiral twist. But when it comes to watching TV at the end of the day, they're literally twisted up in a couch watching it for hours. Judy, talk to us about how that works.
Well, again, it's like going back to what we were talking about before, where all that tension and pressure you were feeling at your job, it's now just going to sit in you in that position. So, and again, then when you're watching TV, your brain's checking out. So you're completely unaware of all of that stuff solidifying into your body. And the thing is you could very easily keep watching TV, get on the floor and put a therapy ball under your hip. Like I get wanting to decompress after a long day, but the fact that you have to sit on the couch, that's the thing. Again, it's like it's the only option. And when did that happen? When is that the only option? And I also have a great example of myself because I had tweaked something on the outside of my calf up by my knee because I was trying to show off an arm balance. and and it had been bothering me like for a couple months. Like it'd go away, but then I could feel it when I would go into lotus or half lotus. So then I went to Guatemala and we ran our first yoga retreat and we sat on the floor. They didn't have chairs there. So you sat on the floor to eat. We sat the entire time. I like halfway through the trip realized that pain was gone.
Correct. Because something simple as that can make a difference. With regard to the kinds of traumas that will cause back issues, as I said, sense of worth or worthlessness, extreme fatigue, right? And extreme fatigue can come from not only physical labor, but mental labor as well. It's all the same when the mind gets done with it. Okay? You have a lot of stress going on in your life. Okay? All right? Your spouse has lost their job. Okay? You don't know how you're going to make ends meet and so on. That is absolutely going to affect your stress levels. It's going to affect your back. Trust me when I tell you that. It absolutely will, right? Because you're going to be living in unawareness 9 times out of 10 because your mind is on something else as opposed to being in a mindful state, which is awareness of your place in space and time and stuff like that. And your awareness of the self goes out the window when stress comes in to the fray. And for those of you who are doubting me, I'm going to ask you all a very simple question. When last you walked outside and said, "Oh, wow, what a beautiful world I live in. Let me smell the carnations growing outside my house"? No, I'm guessing you don't do that. So it's because your mind is on work. When you go out of your door, when you come back, you're going to be dealing with the kids and you lack a lot of time for yourself in the self-care and you lose the mindfulness of what's happening inside of me. Is it, how do I feel? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Today, I had a recording with Judy. I started the recording and they took the electricity after I'd set up everything. That was stressful because now it had pushed back a lot of the stuff that I had to do. So I'm thinking about all the stuff that I had to do. But before I got back on with Judy, what I did was just take a little break, breathe it out, Awareness. So I know where this is affecting me. And you have to be aware when something happens to you, traumatic otherwise. It could be something simple as stumping your toe. How do I feel about it?
It's that emotional connection, right? Where you're really like, you start realizing that your emotions are dictating your fascia tension.
Yes. And that's a horrible thing. That is listen, that is so horrible, right?
And you feel
That
out of
realization.
control.
That realization is a horrible thing because a lot of people say sticks and stones will break my bones, but words and stuff will do me no harm. It absolutely will. Your emotions are going to tighten you up in 0 seconds flat. And so the way you cope with it is being mindful. Get your mind inside your body, deal with the things that are happening to you. If they are unpleasant, don't say, oh, well, this happened, but I got to pick up the kids. Take the holy pause. That would be my advice. Holy pause says, stop. This is happening. Oh shit. How do I feel about it? Where do I feel it inside myself? Am I okay? Like the kids, they fall, they stop, they do a check. You see it in their eyes. They're doing the self check, and then they bounce up and they're scurrying again. Okay, but that holy pause, you miss that holy pause.
They
And
even
so,
think about whether to cry or not. Have you seen them
yes,
that where they go through that second where they're trying to figure out whether they should cry or not?
is this crying level is this a crying level event or is it not? And adults do not do that. They absolutely do not. Okay, so I guess the next issue that we're dealing with is the hips and lower back area. Guys, trauma in that area, pain in that area is signifying a number of things. Excesses amounts of stress when it gets to high levels, right? You may be compensating because something tightened up and you decided to walk differently, which causes more problems and get, keeps people like Judy employed.
Does, because then you have to figure out the order of operations of the fascia tensions.
It
Because
keeps people.
the original restriction will not release until its B and C restrictions have released it. And that's where it starts to become like a detective investigator sort of thing.
All the while singing the knee bones connected to the hip bone,
Right.
right? And you're going through that.
Right? Everybody's fascia looks different than everybody else's.
Mhm.
Not like the actual fascia, but the way it's represented in your body, because everybody's emotional and physical traumas are completely different in a timeline than other people's. So again, we have our original signature inside of us of how our fascia likes to behave.
Yep. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people, they don't realize they're compensating because the pain and the discomfort and the tightness becomes their new normal. They say, oh, this is just part of life. I'm just going to like go through it. If your neck is tight, that's not part of life. Okay? And by the way, just so that while we're on the topic, why do you have a spouse? What what is that spouse's function? Is that spouse decoration? If that spouse is not decoration, then get to massaging. Take the knots out. Okay, people are lack usefulness for each other a lot of times when they're in relationships type things. So if you're single, you get yourself a massage gun and you put the massage gun on that neck. Make sure when you're doing that, just a little tip on massage guns for those of you who have them. Keep your mouth open when you're massaging. Keep your mouth open when you're massaging your trapezius or your neck. Don't keep your mouth closed, please. Okay? It's not a good practice. And the reason for that is, oddly enough, all the jaw joints and your teeth When they close, they sit down in a particular way, and a lot of people miss that point. So, like when that goes out of alignment, so many bad things happen. So many.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's the other crazy thing about fascia is there's so much in your mouth. And there's like orally, we did a whole section on the oral part where you
Hmm.
can start to manipulate stuff in your jaw and everything from the inside of your mouth, and you can get up into the brain as well. It's and even your teeth actually. So another interesting thing about teeth is when a tooth starts to die, it's actually the fascia wrapping around the roots of the tooth. So the fascia is crushing the roots of the tooth, and then the tooth starts to die. So because you've got fascia all through your gums and everything. Yeah.
Gross, but we're going to continue. All right. So the hips and the lower back, the kinds of trauma that obviously cause that are obviously physical traumas, such as car accidents and so on. People always think that car accidents, whiplash is the common injury. No, 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 no. When you get jarred hard enough, for want of a better way of putting this, you get shackled out. Okay? And so if you've been in a car accident and you were fortunate enough to walk out of it and say, I'm fine. No, you're not. You're not fine. Especially if somebody rear-ended you. Okay? Or you are in a car accident and the vehicle rolled over with you in it. Find yourself in a therapist's office, whether you feel absolutely peachy or not.
Because you'll
Because a
feel it
lot of people,
later.
yeah, you're gonna feel it later, and you might not feel it tomorrow. You might feel it years after the fact. Yes, you might feel it years after the fact, and then the adjustment phase is not going to be something that you're going to like because there's going to be unpleasant aspects to it. A lot of people who have suffered sexual abuse have lower back issues as well. I have found that even
Yeah.
when they can't remember.
Mm-hmm. And I know too, I have a client case where after giving birth, she went numb in the front in a way of like her sex drive completely left her and everything. And it was from an emotionally abusive partner from years and years and years ago, that the abuse that she had like couldn't even recall.
Mhm.
And when she gave birth, it stirred all of that up in her lower back, and then it canceled out her sex drive. And so it was like, again, like massive amounts of issues way later on in her life. um yeah.
Yeah, and with regard to your lower back and the organs, your reproductive organs, that would go back to our earlier discussion about the tilt, the measurements that I gave you. Look at yourself, get the broomstick, and start measuring away. Things should be theoretically equidistant apart. When there is like a 3, 4 inch difference between the measurement of a knee to your belly button, knee to belly button, toe to belly button, to the other toe to belly button, or like you're doing the mugshot test where you're looking at yourself from the side and half your body is in the front, the other half is somewhere in the Netherlands, right? Or your spine is there are three conditions of the spine: kyphosis, lordosis, and scoliosis. When this is happening, what does that look like? I'm going to try to give you guys a heads up. This is kyphosis. See? This is lordosis. I can't do it properly. It hurts. Right? This is scoliosis. That's what it looks like. Decide whether or not you fit into any one of those categories and get to working. Because if it's not hereditary, then it's functional. If it's functional, that means you could fix it. Okay? Fix it. Why would I want to spend money fixing something that's not an active problem for me? Because wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you are suffering from a fascial problem, a structural problem, or you have stuff inside of your mind that is affecting your body to such an extent that it's causing those problems, then whatever you think life is, you're only experiencing 30% of it. That's what it is, right?
It's
Now,
very limited.
imagine that you're only experiencing 30% of life because imagine a body that is completely free, like you're not walking to the kitchen, you're floating softly into the kitchen, right? That is what we're talking about, free of impairment. That's why we're actually doing this broadcast, because a lot of you are not floating or gliding, right? Y'all are not like that balloon that is bouncing into the kitchen. A lot of you are dragging the anvil up the hill in the desert without eyelids.
And you don't even know. That's, I swear, more people are angry because of the tension in their body. It's wild. Like, and honestly, I don't blame them either, because it sucks. Like, it hurts. Like, there's a reason. There's a reason you're an angry person. But it's like, again, also I go back to I think of the habitual stuff where, you have this habitual way to walk, this habitual way to stand, and your emotions are the same thing. You get in this habitual way of using your emotions, and you're in that limited box.
Mm-hmm.
And, and for somebody that starts to become aware, then it's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, because you're like, I don't like this version of myself. Like, this is not right. Like, and like for me, for example, it was very much about the softening. Learning how to soften is essential.
Correct. Yes, and for me, most of my clients, and my personal story is the mindfulness, being able to stop when you need to stop. Being able to stop when you need to stop. Something bad happens, stop. Don't just flick it off. Stay, breathe, and get into it. How do I feel? Am I okay? Am I okay with this? Right? And if you're not okay, pause. What am I going to do about it in that instant? If people did that, they would be a lot less angry people, a lot less tight people. Honestly, yeah, you're correct. Imagine being a bus driver driving school kids and sitting in that chair 8 hours
It's the
a
reason they're
day.
angry. It's hostile.
Right? Sitting in that chair 8 hours a day. Imagine being that bank teller sitting on those little weird little is it half chair things, or standing up for a whole day dealing with that. When you get home, the last thing on your mind is alignment and mindfulness. That's the last thing on your mind. But I want to entreat y'all that that can actually cause you guys problems, right? And so you find coping skills, whether it be getting yourself an exercise ball, one of those Swiss ball things to sit on. That's actually a good way of gaining mindfulness, because there's no sitting on a Swiss ball if your mind is not in your body. Okay, you can't be like at work just, oh, I'm just gonna this. You're gonna fall off. So it keeps you very, very mindful of where you are and how you are and where your body is. So I don't know, guys. If you want to correct a few things, get yourself a Swiss ball. Be mindful. Do all those things that we suggested before. All right. I didn't get down to the ankles, and we don't need to get down to the ankles because from the time your hips go off kilter, yeah, guess what? Your ankles are going as well. Okay. So that whole connective chain thing. So I want to actually invite Judy back. Judy, at some point in time, we're going to do another broadcast. We're running out of time. All right. Because this has been just too much fun. And I hope you guys learned something from this broadcast. All right. I want to give you guys a way to contact Judy because Judy is one of the very few people who understand this process, not just from a therapist's point of view. Because there's a whole bunch of people that have a lot of book knowledge. There's very few people that have experiential knowledge, right? Judy is kind of like me. You have to be in a hole and dig yourself out of the hole to be able to tell other people in the hole, this is how you get out of the hole. Okay? You can't just read from a manual. And so I'm going to put Judy's information on screen right now. Judy, give these people a way to get a hold of you.
So I've got my email down there, which you are welcome to contact me with any questions. And then I also have my website down there as well. And on the website, you'll find a nice description of myofascial release and myofascial release restrictions. And then you'll also see my public movement schedule, which I do mobility movement and yoga mixed together. And then there'll probably be some more things coming on there. I'm trying to put together online content, so there'll be lots of future things to come.
Thank you so much. And I promised you guys to give you all a test to check your anxiety level. If you score high in this test, get yourself into somebody's office yesterday. Yesterday. Yeah, I'm going to put this up for 10. I'm going to put this up for 10. Yes.
I swear, I looked down the other day at this girl's socks and there were those Nike socks that said, just do it. And I was like, yes, just do it.
I'm going to put this QR code. Guys, scan this QR code, please. And we're back. Judy, listen, thank you for coming out and having this discussion with me. I love riffing with therapists that are like therapists. And so I want to invite you back and we're going to have another discussion about this trauma and the methods of helping yourself when it is you are suffering from different ailments. So do you have anything else to say, Judy, with regard to how we spoke about trauma and so on? Is there anything that you need to tell the audience in terms of how they can help themselves before we go?
Yes, I do. There was one more thing. Don't underestimate the power of touch. And that is just in a daily basis, giving hugs, touching people on the arm that are comfortable with being touched. In my trauma experience, I went through a stint of time where we were not allowed to touch. And the amount of damage that it did on my body is part of the reason that it was so difficult for me to get myself back together. There's people have different theories about touch, but there really is something about the touch, the human touch, that is unlike anything else. Very powerful.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at info@universalcitizentv.com. And yeah, join us next time where we talk about another interesting aspect of the whole process of trauma release, utilizing different methodologies. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
letting go. Another deep breath in. As you exhale, just letting go even further, knowing that you are safe.
Welcome to your advanced hypnosis session on self-belief. You'll get the best results from this session by giving it your full attention. Please do not listen to this when you need to maintain concentration. Hello, this is Juliet Karaman van Schardenberg, and I'll be guiding you through this meditation. Please do not use this meditation if you're driving.
Allow yourself to become aware of the weight of gravity anchoring you into this moment. As you become more and more aware of that anchor which binds you to the present.
My name is Juliet Karaman van Schardenberg, and I'll be guiding you through this meditation today. This meditation is for body confidence and the peace